that life is a journey and that there is always a starting point and a finish line, a goal to reach. But more than the finish line itself, what I consider most important, because it is the process that takes us to the finish line, is the journey that we must all walk. The journey then becomes a recourse of learning, transformation, and healing. A few years ago, I watched a movie named The Way, which, by the way, I highly recommend. The Way is a 2010 drama film directed and produced and written by Emilio Estevez, starring his father, Martin Sheen. Dr. Thomas Avery, or Martin Sheen, is an American ophthalmologist who goes to France following the death of his adult son, Daniel, or Emilio Estevez, killed in the Pyrenees during a storm while walking the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James, a Catholic pilgrimage route to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia, Spain. Tom's purpose is initially to retrieve his son's body. However, in a combination of grief and homage to his son, Tom decides to walk the ancient spiritual trail where his son died, taking Daniel's ashes with him. While walking the Camino, Tom meets others from around the world, all looking for greater meaning in their lives. He reluctantly falls in with 3 other pilgrims in particular. Just is an overweight man from Amsterdam who says he's walking the route to lose weight to get ready for his brother's wedding, and also that his wife will sack him again. He's a friendly extrovert who is the first to start walking with Tom. Sarah is a Canadian fleeing an abusive husband who says she is walking the pilgrim to quit smoking. Jack is an Irish travel writer who, when younger, had desired to be a great author, but never wrote the novel he dreamed of. He is the last to join the quartet and has been suffering from writer block. On the pilgrimage, the group experienced tough moments and challenges, but during the journey, they started to feel free to talk about their fears, their frustrations, and little by little, they are transformed, healed, and renewed. When they finally get to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, they all feel liberated and grateful for making this journey and for all they have learned along the way. This movie was interesting to me because it shows the complexity of human beings and how people are always struggling with something in their lives. We all are in a search of something that brings sense to our lives or looking for a greater meaning. We all are always pursuing happiness or trying to change things in our lives to help us to be accepted and loved. We are all on a journey, on the way, looking for something that brings hope. I want to invite Dr. Jeremy to read the scriptures this morning.
Hear the scripture reading according to Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler, who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Here ends this reading.
Thank you. Our text this morning is about folks who often get included in the original celebration at the manger in Bethlehem, but who were, in fact, most likely not there at the same time as the shepherds, or even we assume he was around, but he's never really named in here. Of course, I'm speaking of the wise men, or the three kings, or Magi, as we refer to them. Magi is an old Persian word, meaning members of an ancient religion that studied the star and fall legends. They most likely were not kings, and we don't know if there were in fact three, despite the song. This story could have occurred as late as 2 years after the manger scene in Bethlehem. They know that they saw the star at its rising, which was some time after. There has been lots of interest and conjecture over what exactly the star was that was seen. Some say a supernova, others an alignment of the planets, others think it may have been a comet. Regardless of the answer, we know that these Magi saw something unusual that had to do with a light in the sky, and according to the legends they had studied, they deduced that an important child had been born in Judea. So their curiosity led them on this late Christmas journey, and there is room for them in the story. Truth from God can be found everywhere and anywhere. The Magi are not Christian. They did not necessarily fit the normal criteria for someone who would be likely to come to Christ. Who would expect these guys from a pagan society to come such a great distance, a great cost, with expensive gift to worship a child? Of course, the whole Christmas story has been about God doing the unexpected, hasn't it? Teenage virgin mother, a reluctant stepfather, baby born in a barn in the backside of nowhere, feared witnesses, a bunch of smelly shepherds. You get the idea. So now, add to the cast these mystical, magical philosopher, astronomers, as among the first to see what God was up to. Makes you wonder just where God might be trying to send us messages of truth in our time, doesn't it? The real question is, if we were to hear the truth from God, what would we do with it? 3 sets of characters heard the truth about the baby born in Bethlehem. Each of them had a different reaction. The Jewish priests and scribes had all the right knowledge and information. They knew that Messiah was coming and that there were rumors of some kind of birth out there. Herod had the message from the Magi and now confirmation from his own court experts that was a very strong signal that something big was happening in the kingdom. And of course, the Magi themselves got the star and a story, and now had what they needed from their stop over in Jerusalem. So what were the reactions of each of these characters? The priests and the scribes went right back to business as usual. Nothing changed for them. Herod got worried. He was afraid that if there really was a new king coming and could ultimately cost him his power, prestige, and his kingship, better find a way to take care of that kid. The Magi, well, they followed the lie that they had been given, and at the end of the trial, they worshiped. Which of the three got it right? We want to be pretty careful, I think, about coming to God's house week after week, hearing the good news, and continually living with business as usual on our minds. God is constantly speaking to us here and in the unexpected places of our lives, and is continually forming us, shaping and reshaping us, possibly even redirecting us in the choices we are making. We don't want to ignore God. Worrying about what following God's will cost us is not a good option either. Herod did a pretty good job of placing himself on the throne of his life. He was willing to murder in order to keep things under his own control. It is the outsiders, the unlikely candidates in the story, that give us the example of faith. They put feet to their prayers. They got up and went in the direction that God revealed to them. And they expressed their faith in real and practical terms. Of course, that didn't mean their way was easy. The Magi got a warning about going back the same way they came. Following Christ may lead us on the road less traveled. It might have been a harder journey. It may have taken them longer. It was probably more costly in time, effort, and expense. But it is the right way to go. We may need to take some different paths in our own lives. It may not always be the smooth or popular way that we are called to walk. The path may get steep, the cost might be high, but God has promised to walk with us and guide us. Something that I learned from the story of the three kings was, first, their courage to not get up before any threat. They had a clear goal. They didn't allow anybody, even Herod, to make them quit the journey. They learned that in that way are challenges that need to be overcome. The wise men that left their land to follow the star were not the same wise men who came before Jesus. Something happened along the way that changed their lives forever and prepared them to meet Jesus. They were strangers, and Jesus Christ came to this world even for them. Jesus is the hope for all nations of the earth. Jesus was rejected by his own people, but was accepted by strangers and foreigners. This is why the wise men fell prostrate with gratitude before him who does not make distinction among people. Friends, you and I have to walk our own way to Jesus. How is your way so far? In what part of the way are you stuck? What are your motivations to keep going? What are your disappointments, frustrations, and pains traveling in your way? Are you on the right path to finding a real meaning for your life? Just think about the Magi. They just knew that something would happen that would change their lives forever. They had the courage to start a journey to an unknown place. Their journey became a road of learning, transformation, and healing. In the movie The Way, something that caught my attention was the phrase that the pilgrims used to greet each other along the way. Buen camino, which means have a good journey. Friends, in our Christian journey, we each walk our own way. Even though the goal is the same or can be the same, God works individually in us. Sometimes we can meet on the road or we can cross paths. Nevertheless, we must all face our own challenges and overcome our fears to walk with hope in the path of transformation to see and experience the glory of the Lord. We are celebrating today the Epiphany of the Lord. Epiphany means the constant, ongoing awareness of God's continuing gift of grace. My invitation to you all this morning is to get out of your comfort zone and onto the right path where you will find him. Don't remain in the same place you are today. Do not allow your fears, doubts, uncertainty, anxiety, past regrets, etc. steal your blessing. Be a wise man. Be a wise woman, following the light of God. Antonio Machado, a Spanish poet, wrote, "Traveler, your footprints are the only road, nothing else. Traveler, there is no road. You make your own path as you walk. As you walk, you make your own road, and when you look back, you see the path you will never travel again. Traveler, there is no road, only a ship's wake on the sea." He didn't write this poem for a spiritual purpose as far as I know, but I like his words. Traveler, there is no road. You make your own path as you walk. A pretty good metaphor for our call to walk the way with Christ on this day and every day that lies ahead of us in 2019 and beyond.